Hey there, how we doing, XRP community? This is Dog coming at you today with a price action update. And first and beforehand, before we jump into the charts, today we are going to be looking at XinFin, otherwise known as XDC, one of the ISO 222 tokens. Before we jump into the charts today, I just wanted to say thank you all for the support on the last video, and let's go ahead and jump into Twitter. But before we do that, I'm going to throw up the disclaimer, and I'll see you all on the other side. This is not financial advice. This video is for educational purposes only. Trading with money involves risk. I'm not responsible for any decisions you make based off this information. Alright everybody, so real quick, I just wanted to jump into Twitter and just show, I put up a little poll on Twitter just to see kind of what people wanted to see next in terms of a price action analysis, and obviously the winner there clearly is XDC. So that is what we are going to be going over today. But beforehand, I am going to do a brief little update over on XRP to kind of cover what happened from last video. And if you're not following me on X, make sure you hit that follow. My @is@ohmdog. I will drop that into the description for y'all. But look at this, Brad Garlinghouse, B-Rad, and Big Stuart Alderati out in front of the SEC headquarters in Washington today. It was quite the interesting day for news going on within the XRP community. So this was just something really cool to see, the confidence right here that we have with Brad and Stuart. They got some big cojones, if so I should say, and I happened to just drop this meme, which I thought was pretty funny. But anyway, real quick, I am going to jump over to the XRP chart. We're going to go over real quick last video what we were covering, and then we'll jump over into XDC. So essentially, from last video, I was talking about paying attention to these lower time frames, and essentially we were looking at this little area around 47 cents, and price dipped into there. We were looking to see if price would trade out, or was it going to, essentially break down and through it. So currently, as we see in terms of price action, I'm looking at it on the hour chart. I just wanted to kind of zoom in a little bit to see what is happening. We are getting that rejection to the upside like we were mentioning. If that were to be the case, kind of breaking a little bit of this market structure right here to the left on the lower time frames, and let's see what we got going. The first thing that points out to me is we do have some bullish price action presenting itself, but in my opinion, it isn't quite convincing yet, as we are pushing up in a weak manner. In my opinion, we're leaving lower time frame liquidity down below, as we could see. And essentially what I want to see, if this is to actually become a bullish scenario within the market, within the 4 to daily time frame, or 4-hour to daily time frame. Essentially, we want to see more of that market structure start to get broken as we are trading up, and if that's the case, and if we do trade up, are we going to trade up back into this area in order to short down, or are we going to break up back and out of that? This price action just isn't quite convincing yet. If we go over onto the higher time frames, the candle closures are, let's check that real quick. I actually haven't looked at that. Candle closures, nothing too convincing in my opinion. It looks like we are just sweeping liquidity to the downside. Or I'm sorry. It looks like we are just sweeping liquidity to the upside. Just my current opinion, based on how price is currently printing. Even though we are printing up, it is not convincing in my opinion. So that is the XRP update as of now. Let's go ahead and jump over into XDC. So here we are over on the XDC chart. So first and foremost, the thing I did want to point out is this price action that we had right here is essentially where I have these areas marked off. I'm currently looking on the weekly time frame. Reason being is because I'm looking to see more of a higher time frame perspective. When you zoom out, you get a lot more information to deal with. First thing that points out to me is how price is pumping, yes, but as we mentioned in the last video, we know we're in a bear market, right, across the board within the crypto and digital asset space. And then there's the bear market, which is obviously the opposite. And what I want to point out here is kind of what is going on. I'm going to drop down to the daily real quick and kind of see what we have to play with. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go to the 4-hour to get a little bit more in depth with the price action. Since I've actually did mark these late July, early August, and I could pull those tweets up just to prove that I didn't just mark this up before the video, but I am just going to briefly talk about how we got that initial pump, yes. But when I was talking about a bullish and bearish market, and this is something I'm very heavy on and talking about, is how price printed, but didn't really give that solidarity of actually printing up, right? So we're getting essentially liquidity sweeps of highs is kind of what I'm seeing. And when we look at the price action, we are, yes, getting that pump, but we are getting that retracement. And obviously, looking at XDC, people that are invested in XDC want to see XDC go higher, right? But first, I feel like there is stuff that needs to be done first, and I think I'd have to break that down actually on an hour time frame to kind of show more in depth what's going on. See, these were areas that I had interest in at the time as price was pumping that I wanted to pay attention to in the past, areas of significance that price could highly probably react out of, which is the case that we see right here. We're seeing reactions all within both of these areas on smaller time frames. And essentially just on a broad outlook from this current area that price is rejecting at right now, essentially we want to see if price is going to hard reject and sweep all of this liquidity to the downside, because look at all this. That's beautiful right there. That's a market maker's dream essentially, right? We have liquidity sitting pretty right there. So that is a potential target to kind of take retail and leverage traders out of the trade. Right? That's something I'm really paying attention to, and this is across the board with XRP, XLM, XDC, algorand, and a few other of these tokens. Look out for the short right here, essentially. Are we going to break down? And I believe this would be a fundamental news event that actually causes this, and this is the good thing about technicals, right? Is we can see almost the future based on data left in the past. We can see that price could potentially want to short out of this range right here that we've been sitting in this range, this area of consolidation. We could short out of that, break liquidity, and I'm personally thinking that if price wants to continue to the downside from its previous 9-cent high, then we could very probably start to trade down into that 3-cent, 4-cent area of significance. I marked the red area to kind of have a safe area, and if we get down into this green area, then it's more of like, okay, this might be looking more of like an execution. We really want to see if price is actually going to react up and out in an accumulative process, or are we going to continue to trade back down out of that? And I know that's very hard for a lot of people to hear as well, but when I jump up to the higher time frames, we could very well see that this is a cumulative price action, right? But we still are in this bear market. So this is something I am looking for. Are we going to start to break down? And, you know, we very well could just continue to consolidate throughout this area like price does, building liquidity to the downside, building liquidity to the upside. It could spike again, drop, it could spike and continue higher. These are just multiple scenarios that are kind of going through my mind as we print new data. But as we can see on higher time frames, even we are getting some sort of rejections out of here. So that's something to keep in mind, that there is open liquidity to the downside. There is open liquidity to the upside. If price, you know, spikes down, you know, it could very well stop hunting to the upside. You know, there's many different ways we could view this, but I like to kind of keep it very simple. So essentially at the most extreme price levels, anywhere from the 2 to 4 cent area is basically this short right here that you can see on higher time frames that I'm going to mark right here, this 2 to 4 cent area. I know that's a very big range to deal with, which is why I try to identify some smaller time frame price action where price could actually react up and out of in a high probability. But as we do see, there is more liquidity to the downside if we zoom out a little bit. And the thing about these areas, even I'm questioning them myself, the risk to reward ratios on those, like if you were trading leverage, are really not that great, right? I mean, it is good in a way, but for my personal opinion, it isn't. That's too much risk for the reward. I'm more looking at a 1 to 10 risk to reward ratio. So That's why we want to pay attention to that reaction that actually happens here if we even get down there, right? Like I said, it could just sit here, consolidate, and go up, but I don't see that happening, because when we see consolidation, we eventually see the stop hunts before price actually eventually moves. But this is price action, in my opinion, that will lead into a bull market eventually. It's not a matter of if at this point, it's a matter of when, and kind of all the in between. It kind of reminds me of World War I, right? You have two trenches on one side, and I could kind of illustrate this real quick. You know, you have your trenches, but what's in the middle is no man's land, right? That's where everybody gets wiped out, right? And in between it's like getting caught in the crossfire. So it's kind of tough to gauge right now, but I believe that the data that we are seeing right now is overall bullish for the future, but bearish in the short time frame as market makers continue to make the markets. And there's really not much to it in terms of price action, you know, but like I was saying, that wider range 2 to 4 cent area on the higher time frames, if I were to go to like a weekly chart, it becomes a little bit more evident of kind of where we could see price go, which is what I'm mainly paying attention to. I'm not really too concerned about what's happening on the lower time frames until we get into these areas of interest where we want to see smaller time frame price reactions. Just keep that in mind. If we do get that short out of this area to sweep liquidity, then start to pay attention to how price will start to react within that 2 to 4 cent area as a wide range, but in more of a consolidated range, we could say the 3 to 4 cent area. You can kind of identify this based on my chart. I know I've got a lot of lines up right now, but just to make it simple, I'm just going to draw our lines. If we get that rejection, let's see if we can get up and out, and or more extreme lows, sweeping more liquidity to the downside before we go higher, or are we just going to essentially trade higher here and forget all that liquidity, or maybe for later. So that's pretty much the XDC outlook that I see right now. It isn't anything really too special at this moment, as we are overall in a bearish structure in the market, which leads me to believe the higher probability of trading to the downside is more probable. So that's pretty much all I have for y'all today. I appreciate you all stopping by. This is Dog coming at you with an XDC price action update, throwing a little bit of XRP price action in the middle as well. But I appreciate you all stopping by. Make sure you follow me on X at Dog, and I will catch y'all in the next one. Dog out. Peace.